You were born in ancient Rome, and by some quirk of fate, you are not just some commoner starving in the streets littered with horse feces. No, you have the privilege of being friends with the most powerful man in the Republic, Gaius Julius Caesar. Congratulations, you have won the most dangerous consolation prize in history. From an early age, his life has been limited to holding glasses of wine for Caesar, laughing at his jokes, pretending to agree with his radical reforms, and of course, telling everyone that he is practically a living god. Because in practice, that is exactly what it is. Going against Caesar is not just stupidity, it is suicide disguised as boldness. But you are not alone in this act of loyalty. Alongside you, other senators, generals, and close friends are living the same farce. You exchange fake smiles while you plan, behind each other's backs, who will stab whom first. That's what being Caesar's friend is, a bloody act that everyone pretends not to see. The irony is that Caesar knows this too. He pretends to believe every promise of loyalty, but deep down, as he embraces you at banquets, he is already planning his next move to ensure that if anyone tries to overthrow him, it won't be you, or it will be you, but dead. You remember well the first day you smelled betrayal in the air. It was at a banquet when Caesar raised his wine glass, smiled at all his friends, and spoke of forgiveness, unity, and a glorious future for Rome. Meanwhile, the fork in your hand was sweating. You realized no one toasts here. Here, everyone just tests poison. At first, being by his side seemed advantageous. He gave you lands, gifts, and promises of positions. All the while, the people chanted your name. But the price was clear: your absolute loyalty, or your head on a silver platter, handed out as a trophy to appease bloodthirsty crowds. The most tragic thing is that for most of those who called themselves friends of Caesar, there was no way out. If you left his circle, you were a traitor. If you stayed, you were an accomplice. And if you breathed too loudly, you were a target. In other words, you were a dead man who had not yet chosen who would deliver the final blow. And you know the fame of Brutus. Yes, that Brutus, the son that Caesar loved so much. For Rome, he was the symbol that even the most intimate bond can be broken with a sharp dagger. They say that Caesar trusted Brutus more than all the others put together. Well, trust never saved anyone from a dagger in the belly. Every morning, you wake up not knowing if you'll ever sleep. As you walk through the marble corridors, you feel the eyes of other senators boring into you. No one there cares who is truly loyal. Everyone wants to know who will betray first and who will be left to die as a scapegoat. At night, when you lie down, your head repeats a single question. What if it were better to betray than to be betrayed? Maybe that's why all Roman history seems like a parade of stabbings. Rome was not made of marble. Rome was made of daggers. You try to ignore it, but every hallway in the Senate feels like a walking graveyard. One false step, one whisper exchanged, one toast denied, and presto, your name appears on a list that no one admits exists, but everyone knows about. The name of that list is certain death. The cruelest thing is to realize that Caesar was not just a leader, he was a mirror. He knew that everyone around him was treacherous because he was too. A master of manipulation, a genius of war, but above all, a man who collected disposable friends. And as if that were not enough, Rome was also a perfect theater for staging tragedies. The people loved it. Every betrayal, every execution, every impassioned speech in the forum became a spectacle. Blood washed the cobblestone streets and fed the thirst for power that no one could quench. To complete the irony, those who thought they were untouchable were the first to fall. The Senate was the stage, The senators were the actors, but Caesar was the director. But every director who thinks he is invincible forgets that the script can change without warning. You want to run away, but running away is impossible. Being Caesar's friend is like wearing a gold chain. It's beautiful, it shines in the sun, but it's still a chain. If you try to break it, you become a target. If you accept it, you become an accomplice. And in Rome, accomplices die in each other's arms. So you do what everyone else does. Smile, toast, compliment, plot, suspect. And in the meantime, you secretly plan how you're going to get out alive when the knife starts to shine in the shadows. Spoiler, almost no one makes it. Deep down, you know how this story ends. The day arrives. It's a bright morning, but the air in the Senate is heavy. Caesar enters, surrounded by friends. You were there, in the middle of the circle, holding your toga, feeling the sweat chill the back of your neck. A whisper, an exchanged glance, a false step. Then the dry sound of the first stab cuts through the silence. Another, and another, and another. The great Caesar falls into the arms of the one who claimed to love him. And you? Maybe you were the one who held the dagger, or who died trying to stop it. In the end, Rome vibrates. The crowd screams, the Senate bleeds. And you, friend of Caesar, become just another name lost among statues and ruins. Because those who get too close to the sun turn to ash.
And that's why, in ancient Rome, being friends with Caesar wasn't friendship at all. It was just the quickest way to get a knife behind your back. After Caesar's body cools on the marble, you understand once and for all, Rome has no friends. Rome has accomplices, rivals, occasional traitors. And if today you survive, great. Tomorrow, your blood may be staining the white tunic of some senator who today pretends to shake your hand. The irony is that everyone swears he did it for Rome, that every stab was in the name of the Republic, of freedom, of the honor of the Senate. A lie. It was fear. It was envy. It was a thirst for power disguised as noble speech. As the people shout Brutus's name, the real theater begins. Because after Caesar's death, you don't rest. Now comes revenge. You lie awake at night, waiting for someone to knock on your door, not to ask if everything is okay, but to make sure your head won't roll because you conspired wrongly. Rome loves to stab, but it also loves revenge. And who leads the charge? Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man, the one who toasted at his side, who held the crown, who swore he would never leave his friend alone. Now he wants blood. And who's on the list? You, of course. Do you think you got away with it just because you didn't hold the knife? Congratulations, you're delusional. In Rome, it's not just the guilty party who pays, it's everyone who was in the room. And you were there. You saw everything. You did nothing. Now you're going to pay too. You try to escape, maybe to Greece, maybe to hide among slaves, maybe to become a peasant. But how can you hide a face that everyone knows? You are a friend of Caesar, remember? You have gained too many favors, too much land, too much fame. Now all of this is a clue. Every corner is a spy. Every face, a snitch. Every coin you carry could be the same one they'll use to bribe someone to turn you in. And in ancient Rome, no one is more dangerous than a friend who wants to survive. Sometimes you wonder, was it worth it? To have walked beside him, to have laughed, to have drunk expensive wine, to have heard promises of glory, to now die in an alley, far from the Senate, without a statue, without a speech, without a legacy, just a dagger in the rib, just like the one he received. The most unbearable thing is that people forget so quickly. In just a few years, Caesar becomes a statue, Brutus becomes a traitor, Mark Antony makes speeches that Rome swallows as if they were true. And you are nobody. Your history is erased before the blood even dries on the ground. If you were smart, you would have stayed neutral, right? But being neutral in Caesar's Rome was impossible. You were either with him or against him. And being against him while he was alive was impossible. So you stayed close and, ironically, died faster. History likes to repeat the same warning, but few people listen. Power attracts knife. And the closer to power, the sharper the blade. Caesar's friendship was the most beautiful blade, shiny, polished, but it always ended up in his belly. And now that you are dead, or nearly dead, Rome continues. The Senate continues to lie. The people continue to applaud executions in the arena. And Caesar's name, ironically, becomes even greater after he dies, because traitors turn to dust. Martyrs become monuments. Perhaps deep down, Caesar knew that this was the end. Perhaps he chose to die like this, surrounded by friends who betrayed him, just to become a myth. Because in ancient Rome, no one remembers the senator who survived, but everyone remembers the emperor who fell bloody and said, "Even you, Brutus." And you, on your last night, lie in bed or in your cell or in a dark corner of a tavern, and you understand. The game was never about friendship. It was about power. And you believed the lie. Worse yet, you participated in it. So the next time someone offers you a toast, smiles too much, promises eternal friendship, think of Caesar. Think of the blood-stained marble steps. Think of the 23 stab wounds. And then ask yourself, would you dare to be his friend again? Rome has never been kind to those who trust too much. And if someone ever says betrayal is unforgivable, show them Rome. Rome has lived with betrayal, grew up with it, and died 1,000 times for it. In the end, you are part of the furniture. A face in a cracked mosaic, a line on a parchment, a silent warning to those who think power equals friendship. And so, his story ends. Not as a hero, not as a villain, but as yet another who believed that Caesar was untouchable and that friendship was dagger-proof. Congratulations, you survived longer than some, less than others. But deep down, the moral is the same. In ancient Rome, trust was a luxury, and friends were just an excuse to die bloodied on the marble floor. Now take a deep breath, keep this warning in mind, and the next time you hear someone say, "Trust me," imagine a dagger up their sleeve. That's the least Rome has taught you.